Today we have Miss Annabelle Carr, who is the editor of Savannah Magazine, Savannah Homes, and Savannah Weddings, producing 10 magazine issues a year along with a number of auxiliary titles. She holds a BA in Narrative Arts from Davidson College and an MFA in Writing from Lesley University, and she also teaches and writes freelance on her spare time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Miss Annabelle Carr. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm great, thanks.
Thank you for sitting down with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so you've been editing magazines for several years, and it's obvious that you're great at what you do.
Thanks.
So to start, being that you are the editor for 3 popular Savannah magazines, I would love to know what are the main challenges of editing a city magazine?
Well, there are many. It's one of the key challenges that I face is explaining our ethical policy, and I know that can be interesting for journalism majors. We do not, advertising does not impact our editorial. There's no pay for play, like we say. So different publications, regionally, locally, will have different policies on that. And ours is very clear, but sometimes it can be difficult explaining to our advertisers what you bought is a page in the magazine and not any editorial content. So because we are a consumer publication that's based on advertising revenue, some people can think of us as biting the hand that feeds us a little bit because we're like, no, this content is separate. So that's a big challenge to work out and explain that we are trying to create a strong product that people can hang their advertising on, but we want people to want to read it for what it is, not for, we want people to trust the content.
Right.
And to want to pick it up for the content, and hopefully that will benefit our advertisers in a more, appropriate fashion.
That's understandable.
So helping people sort that ethical, situation out can be kind of challenging at times.
Okay. So, like I said before, you've been an editor for years. So, what are some of the things that you enjoy most about being an editor?
Well, I love sitting down and getting ideas together for a new issue. We start out with just a few ideas about what each issue's theme is going to be, and then we get to find out what's going on right now that ties into the theme, and we get to think visually about the magazine as well as just word-wise. Like magazine editing is a lot of collaboration with art, so that's really fun. And so that high-level planning period is really, really fun. And then when you get into executing it, and when reality starts to, try to measure up to your expectations, and it can't, that can be a little bit of a downer. And so then this other fun part comes in where you're then fighting to make it as good as it can be, and to get it as close to your vision as possible. And you win some, you lose some, but it's a fun battle, and it's definitely,
You make it seem so fun, especially the way that you smile when you talk about it. I imagine that it takes a tremendous amount of patience and also a keen eye and imagination for a person to be an editor. So what are some skills or qualifications that a person must have to be a successful editor?
Well, you have to be a passionate reader more than anything. And I can always tell if a writer is really a writer by how their ear is with, if they can hear when something sounds wrong, if they can hear the rhythm and kind of can instinctively self-correct, if they can, evoke something, almost invoke something, catalyze a response in people, it always comes down to, are they a reader themselves? When they read, do they get goosebumps, If that doesn't happen, then they might be able to deliver good facts in a timely manner, but they're not going to give me everything I need as a writer. Now, for an editor, I think you need those same skills, but then you also have to have maybe that even higher vision of what's going on. It's not just about filling a certain niche within the magazine or within the publishing world, but it's about really seeing the big picture and what else you can add to it.
Right.
So always thinking, yes, and I can also do this, and how about this, something about seeing that bigger picture and still having that ear for the one sort of off bit of rhythm, that one thing that needs a comma, being able to shift focus. I guess that's if I could break it down, if I could edit what I just said and say one thing, it would be is that ability to shift focus from high level to minutia very quickly and precisely.
Okay. Now, editing, of course, is your expertise, but you're more than an editor. You are also a freelance writer, and in a previous interview, you said that you were working on a novel and some short fiction. So can you talk to us about some of your freelance writing?
Yes. Most recently, my freelance writing has been kind of limited to my topic of interest because I, at a Savannah magazine, if there's a travel story in Savannah or a cultural story that's based in Savannah, I still feel like my chops are good enough to take on those issues. And then I've written some health stories also, just because it's easy to, I'm all about the cost-benefit ratio at this point. I want to get a high dollar rate for my writing at this point because it's taken me away from all of these other jobs I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I want to be able to access the people that I need, quickly. And so I pretty much have been doing health stories and stories on Savannah in the past few years. And I'm finding that people really want to know about Savannah, and various outlets will have a certain angle or interest on it. And then also with the health stories, I think our healthcare system is large, and the burden on our healthcare system is large. And so people are always looking for new ways to take care of their selves, healthier lifestyles. And there are so many great stories and experts out there, so that's fun.
Okay, hearing about your writing made me curious to ask, what or how do you characterize your literary influences, if you have them?
Oh my goodness. Number one is James Baldwin. Okay. James Baldwin was my formative writer. He taught me that you don't have to fit a certain mold to write from that perspective. Like, he was a gay black man, he could write a married white woman, he could write any age, any interest, he could know the human heart so well. And that just captivated me, and that love of character and that fascination with, creating the world that would shape the actions of a person. I'll never forget another country when I realized who the book was really about. Mm-hmm. And that really made me love fiction. It made me love the possibilities, because here, and I don't want to do a huge spoiler on the book, but the book appears to be about a cast of incredibly diverse characters. Right. And then at some point it just sort of struck me that the character this book's really about is barely in it at all, And that made me so excited, there's so many different ways to tell one story, and that gets me excited. One of the problems with that, of course, is there are so many ways to tell one story, you really got to narrow it down to just one at some point, So stop starting your novel. You know what I mean? So yeah, James Baldwin is number one. There are so many. The editors that we talked about today in my presentation, each one of them has inspired me. Diana Vreeland, Max Perkins, Bob Gottlieb. But yeah, in terms of just discovering the complete magic of writing and how abundant it is and how many possibilities there are, with James Baldwin all the way.
I love James Baldwin too.
Me too. And I love that he didn't let himself get pigeonholed,
Right.
It was really controversial because he was just like, hey, I'm a person, I'm not going to serve any one political agenda, I'm just going to be true. And I think because of that, he reached people who wouldn't have understood where he was coming from until they read his stuff, who wouldn't have understood him from the outside but could understand him from the inside out.
Right, reading his pieces made me, I guess, find more of myself in my writing. I was able to identify myself at that point in my life. Mm-hmm. Okay, so being that writing is a key factor in your career, how has writing inspired you or impacted your life?
Well, the number one thing is it's funded my tiny household, so that's been really great. It's actually been coming to Savannah State and teaching adjuncts here, the composition class, where I've really realized what writing can do for everyone, not just the writer. For anyone who has to write something, you have this opportunity to think in a way that you couldn't without writing. Without writing, it's harder to focus, you know, I have one great idea, and then the next minute I'm watching this, and then blah, 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 never come back to that idea. Maybe years later I'm like, oh yeah, I thought about that once, you know? But writing allows you, and it also forces you to think deeper. You can go further, the distance of your thought, because you're not constantly interrupting yourself, you know? So it's an opportunity to explore, but you still have like a lead line, you know, connecting you to your thoughts. You know, you can follow it in a linear way. There's I think it was Kurt Vonnegut who wrote Harrison Bergeron. I'm pretty sure it was Vonnegut. And it's a short story that's like an allegory for, you know, modern times, I guess. And in it it's science fiction, but everybody wears these handicapping devices to like make so that no one can stand out or have any advantages. Everybody's trying to be the same. So this character, Harrison Bergeron, right? He's really smart, he's really handsome, he's really athletic, whatever. So he's got like these weights on his limbs to keep him from being too graceful. And he's got like this bell. It's actually his dad is really smart, so his dad has a bell that goes off like every 2 minutes, really loudly, and he forgets his train of thought, you know? And I think that that's more and more what life is like these days. Like, I literally have a bell that goes off pretty much every 2 minutes telling me, you know, I've got a text or I've got a, you know, call or whatever, and I get distracted. And to have this opportunity to just have this long, you know, connected thought process, that's what writing gives us. That, you know, if we don't have that, we'll lose so much of the individual, you know. And sometimes I look at my class here and I think, you know, there's so many people here, like, that guy just said this great idea, and I would never have known it if I hadn't forced him to talk, you know what I mean? And, you know, and I just think, you know, let's give people a way to pull themselves out of the canyon of their own inner thinking, and follow their thought to its conclusion and see where they get. And then they can share that with other people. If that one individual doesn't have that opportunity, you know, some idea could be lost. You know, some unique idea could be lost. So putting writing in the hands of these individuals with their own unique stories can be really exciting.
I never thought of it like that. I really did.
I want it to be that exciting for them, but they're more like, I have to, and I want to be like, no, you can.
Yeah, it's hard, especially for a lot of students, to be motivated when writing, because it's something you have to do when you're here, something that you're forced to do, and nobody really wants to be forced to do anything. So that's why, I don't know, in a sense, I kind of depend on my professors to make me want to do this paper about hidden intellectualism, which I really don't understand, but I'm just like, hidden intellectualism. And then if they explain it in a way that pertains to you or your life, or something, the smallest thing from that pertains to something that you've experienced, or something that you can relate to, and then, you know, from that one idea you can write an 8-page paper, is just so amazing to me. And I really depend on my professors for that, because it really takes the right person to bring that out of you. Yeah. And I consider myself a writer as well, and oftentimes I experience writer's block. And it's not just me, but others who are serious writers sometimes face problems with writing. So my question to you is, are there any obstacles that you face in the writing process, and if so, how do you overcome them?
Well, I have a whole bunch of cheats and formulas for my day job, right? Because I know how many pages I need to fill, and I got to fill them no matter what. I know what my deadline is. So I can't afford to have writer's block in my day job. So I know I have my own little sort of toolbox of ways in, you know. So if I'm going to address my writer and I've got my reader, and I've got a page that I need to fill, I think I've got this topic, okay? I could ask a question about their experience, and say 50% of them say yes, you know. Do you ever have this problem? That's not exactly what I'll do, but that idea, you know. So I just grab them with a question, and now they can kind of relate, blah, 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 right? Or I jump in with something that's like an observation that we can all share. Like, man, it's hot in Savannah. Okay, that's also an oversimplification. But, you know, immediately it's like, oh yeah, it's freaking hot, what are we going to do? And then now I can turn it into a style thing, because it's too hot to wear anything that's on the runways right now. So here's what we are going to wear, you know, this one little trend that, you know, actually made it into stores, and, you know, is conservative enough that you can wear it on, you know, whatever. So there's like a whole, how do you identify with your reader and pull them in a little bit, having that hook. And sometimes it's the same 3 hooks that I keep coming back to, like, don't we have this in common? Do you have a problem? Well, I've got a solution, you know. What's going to make these people, you know, and then after that, you're just sort of bantering with your hook a little bit, you know? That gets me going on the day job front. The creative writing that I do / want to do, it's a whole other story. And so that's why I was encouraging people in my talk to sort of hire themselves as a writer. If I sit down and give myself an assignment to do, I'm going to do it, you know, or at least if I take it seriously enough, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And I can fill that prescription that I wrote, and I'll have a piece that I can then edit into whatever I want. But more often than not, and I think this is just the writer's dilemma, I find myself sort of stumbling around in front of the door trying to find another way in, you know, like bumping up against the walls, beginning the same story over and over again. You know, everybody wants to get to that place in writing where they're on a roll, and they know what they're doing, and they're excited, and the next thing's coming, the next thing's coming. But we all have that moment when we're just trying to get in the door, you know? And I think it's just about if I was a little more disciplined, if I was a little less cashed out on my day job, you know, I think I could make it into that door more often than I do. You know, so I'm like everyone else. I'm like every other writer in the world, in that, you know, there's something more that I want to do that I'm always, you know, trying to push myself to accomplish. So.
That made me think about a story that I started on my own that I wasn't able to finish. I started maybe in high school, and I really thought to myself, I was like, wow, I'm writing this like way ahead of my time. I was like, I really don't know. I want a character that is, I'm trying to create a character that's way older than me, and I have yet to have experienced these things that I want my character to have experienced. So I had to put it on hold because I wouldn't be able to understand what I was trying to put my character through and things of that nature. Now, maybe 4 or 5 years later, I've revisited that story, and I should have saved it, but in my mind when I was a little younger, I was like, well, if I didn't finish it now, I'm just going to delete it. It doesn't matter now, but you were supposed to always keep your word no matter what. Yeah. Now I know that, but I've been given the opportunity to create a short video or film, so maybe I'm in my mind, I'm thinking maybe I should take that piece that I wasn't able to finish and try to make it come to life, and then maybe some inspiration can spring up from there.
Right. So
that's just my idea.
Well, if it makes you feel any better about throwing that out, I've had pieces I've hung on to and then tried to use years later. And they're never as good as I remember they were. And it's more like the work I did back then is useful, but the actual work I have to show for it is just like it's like trying to put life back into a corpse. It's just kind of gross and and not useful, but it's better to just know that you paid some dues when you wrote it the first time, and when you sit down to write it now, that will come through in the new version. I can think of some things I tried to breathe life into.
It's like when you go and you're just like, what was I thinking? Okay, sometimes in our professions and crafts, though we're good at what we do, we recognize that there's always room for improving or bettering ourselves, whatever it may be. So in regards to writing, what is the best literary advice you've ever been given?
Literary advice. Well, I mean, definitely someone told me to throw out an old piece that I was trying to read life into. He said, just throw it out and start over, and I couldn't do it, and ever since then I now will. Like, I'd rather start from scratch, but I know there's something better. What's really coming to mind right now is not so much literary advice as it is production advice. You know, I keep a messy desk, and there's always chaos happening, some fire going on, I've got to solve something, you know, and so I'm always in this, like, you know, like state of, like, emergency, it seems like, right? And that's just part of what my job is. But to take some time to get up early and to take some time before all of that starts and to really just lay out your objectives. And I think that really works for both writing and for editing. And I had a really nice conversation actually with Dr. Wanda Lloyd, who's the head of Journalism and Mass Communications. She was, you know, in charge of all of these amazing publications. She was at, I don't want to misquote anything, but a number of very prominent newspapers, and, you know, had to manage a lot of different stuff. And she was talking about just some of the basic tools she would use in the morning to get her day started, you know, and that really helped me think, yes, the day's going to get away from me, right? But before it does, I need to at least kind of point it in the right direction, you know, set some objectives that are going to have some momentum for the next day, you know, that are going to keep us headed in the right direction. Because if I get to a point where I'm just putting out fires, or where I'm just responding and, you know, vomiting on the page or whatever it is, I'm not going to end up with what I'm hoping for. Exactly. You know, just to try to keep on course. And you know, there's that saying like, you got to get up pretty early in the morning to fool old so-and-so. You know the saying?
Yeah.
Well, I never really thought that through and think like, wow, if I do get up a little earlier in the morning, it'll be harder to fool me. It'll be harder to get me off course, you know? So, and the writers I admire, like my associate editor, Amy Condon, she is really more disciplined about doing her own writing. She'll get up early and do it before she comes in and deals with the magazine, and I really admire that about her. I keep thinking, oh, I need to get up a little earlier. Mornings, even I'm a night person, but mornings give you that jump on your own goals.
Well, I'm just thinking because I consider myself a writer and I want to make myself more disciplined when it comes to writing, but I'm one of those people who I'm like, I guess I had to have gone through some experience that's brought about strong emotion for me to throw out something that's like, wow, like amazing.
Yeah.
Whereas when I try to do it on my own, like on my spare time, I'm just like, oh, this isn't anything compared to the other stuff that I put out when I go through something. So I limit myself to thinking the only time when I can produce something that's good enough for me is when I'm experiencing something.
Right, and I think that's where this day job situation for me has helped, because I can't always put out things that are good enough for me, but I can put out things that can sit there for a day, and then I can edit them, and they'll be good enough for me, you know? So not waiting until, you know, the stars align or whatever, but just sitting down, doing what you gotta do, and you know, one of my, I guess, a really good, here's some good literary advice I got from my master's degree. You're not a writer unless you're writing. And that's something that I'll tell my kids in composition, like, cause they have a journal, you know, and every day I ask them to write something in their journal, and we spend like 15 minutes, and I'm like, you guys are writers, because right now you're writing, you know? You're not a writer unless you're writing. Right now you're more of a writer than I am, because you're actually writing. Because it's a funny profession where, you know, a lot of us spend a lot of time talking about what writers we are, but the pen's not moving, you know? So I think all that crap that's not good enough for us, that's really what makes us a writer, doing it.
Okay.
I'm going to go home and take my own advice.
That's the same thing that I do.
Yeah.
Okay, just to piggyback off of the last question, how should serious student writers work to improve their craft?
Well, I think here's another, great writer and professor, A.J. Verdell, told me, no matter what you do, read. She said, you're going to go through periods. This is when I was getting ready to graduate with my master's degree. She's like, and I would cry to her because I was all like, I'm a single mom. She's like, so am I. And she was like, even at those times when you think that you can't write, like just read. Like that will keep you in the medium. That will keep you, you know, in the ether or whatever.
And that's so true.
Yeah. And then you won't be able to help yourself. You'll want to get in on that dialogue. But if you're not reading, if you just like try to live your life like a person who doesn't read or write, you're going to always have this sense of frustration and, you know, so.
Have you ever like started reading the book, but you're reading, but you're not really there, like you're in your thoughts more than you're on the page?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I am. Because when I'm reading, my mind is always racing, and I'm like, what did I just read? But then I have this amazing idea from what I just read, and then I close the book and I'll be like, well, let me just start writing. It's stuff like that.
Right.
That's why I think I can relate to when that person told you that reading was important to stay in the medium. Are there any other suggestions regarding writing that you would like to share with students or anybody else?
Yes, and I'm about to go give this talk to my class. But when are you done writing? ? Are you done writing when you write the last paragraph? No. I get papers and it's like they literally just were like, period, handing it in. And it's like, no, you need to go back through that and edit it now with keeping in mind what your conclusion was, and see if where you started out really merits where you ended up, or do you need to go back and insert some little guiding point, some better evidence in to make your conclusion justifiable. Because I'll get a lot of papers and I'll be like, well, I really didn't know what the writer was saying. And then you can tell they picked up the book and they found some quotes and they're starting to figure it out. And then by the end, they kind of know what the writer was saying. But back at the beginning, they don't, So you got to go all the way back through and edit your paper or rewrite your paper before you hand it in. And I think that people should spend more time in their editor half, really looking at that more higher level vision and thinking, did this achieve what I wanted it to achieve? Does this sound the way I want it to sound? I know it's difficult when you're forced to do a specific assignment because that can be not as motivating. But the bottom line is everyone has something in them, some way of making connections, some idea that is worthy of further study. And having the discipline to see it through and clarify it and sort of chip away all of the extra stuff and be able to hand that idea to other people and let them build on that. It's valuable work, and it's worth doing the editing half, the revision half after you have the initial draft process.
I'm just thinking back to my freshman year because it seems like I was more motivated coming in, and then now that I'm like a junior, it's like I haven't written any papers this semester, which is, I feel like it's good, but it's also kind of bittersweet because I feel like if I'm ever, because I have to finish taking my minor classes, which are English courses,
right?
And I feel like I've kind of like lost the juices for that. Like if I was to be presented with a prompt, then I'd be like, what? Where are the? So, well, thank you so much, Ms. Carr, for sitting down and talking with me today.
Yeah, it's
on
really
behalf
fun.
of the QEP and Savannah State University. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was fun talking with you.